Hey, thank you for tuning in to this episode of From Dirt We Grow. I am your host, Stephanie Kendall. In this week's show, I have invited yet another professional with expertise in a field relevant to the topics at hand here that we need to discuss. So, of course, before all of that, I'm going to ask you to hit the like and subscribe buttons for me. And with that, let me introduce you and welcome to the show another Stephanie. She's gonna tell you why she's here.
Hi, Stephanie. Thank you so much for having me. I
It
love
feels so weird
this.
saying, hi, Stephanie.
We have two Stephanies on the mic. It's an exciting day.
I don't know what we're going to do. People are going to lose their minds. Let's see how this goes.
They just might.
Well, I want to thank you so much for being here. And why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
For sure. No, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. Yeah, my name is Stephanie. I am an addiction specialist and a licensed therapist based out of California. And I'm here to talk about mental health and whatever you have planned, Stephanie. I'm open to it and I will answer to the best of my ability. So thanks again for having me.
So I want to jump right in because I'm wondering, psychiatrist or psychologist? What's the difference? And what are you?
So, okay, I know it's a whole thing. I'm not
I
either one
know,
of
right?
those things. I know this, I honestly feel like I love that we're saying this because I think a lot of people don't know the difference. So I'm a mental health therapist, like an LMFT is what you'll see. So there's different types of like licensed therapists. We have master's degrees and post-grad hours and all that good stuff. A psychologist has a PhD or a PsyD, so they went to school for like an additional doctorate degree, and they can just do like different assessments than mental health therapists can. And then psychiatrists can prescribe medication and they're like have their MDs. So masters and then doctorate and then MD would be the difference between a therapist, a psychologist, and a psychiatrist. Hopefully that makes sense.
With people with mental health issues, that's just too much for us to keep straight. You know what I mean? Like,
Honestly, I feel the same around like if I barely can figure out all of these letters,
right.
like
There's a stigma around it, I feel. Is that getting better, do you feel like? Or is mental health still not supported like it should be?
that's a good question. Um, I mean, to your point about the stigma, I do feel that the stigma has been lifted quite a bit in that we have shared it all over. I mean, social media, I think, was a huge like helper with just lifting the stigma around mental health. People are like, "Hey, I struggle," and everyone, and a lot of people are like, "Oh my gosh, me too," right? So I think that
Okay.
has been very destigmatizing for the entire population of people that struggle with mental health. However, our systems have not kept up with that destigmatization of it all because I think that like this system still is very broken in that like we don't have enough providers and providers are super underpaid and like the working conditions are not great and all of that. I think that falls within like previously when mental health was more stigmatized, the access to care wasn't really there, but now it's really not there because we have so many more people that are trying to access help, but again, like
Mm.
our system is not be able to like support it. So I would say, from working in the field, definitely less stigma than previous. However, we still see it with how our system is set up.
That's a good point. I didn't think of that. And there's like so many private practices, correct? Isn't there
Yeah.
more private therapists than there are with the hospitals, or how does that
Yeah.
go?
I mean, I don't know what it's like. I mean, I don't know really exact what I've seen as a therapist. I mean, I became licensed, or I graduated in 2020, so I've only been working as a therapist for the past 5 years. Previously, I mean, I did my internships and stuff like that, so I guess a little longer. But I've only looked at the system from like really from then on, and what I've seen is that a lot of people are going into private practice, but they're only accepting private pay. So that creates a
Right.
huge gap because working with insurance companies, I'm not going to get on a soapbox here, it's a nightmare.
Do you know, are you private?
So I previously worked under like the large tech companies that are taking over and accepting therapists
Oh,
like
yeah.
no like within seconds and seeing so many patients. So I used to work under a tech company like that for the past year and a half. In February of this year, I decided to go private and try to get credentialed on my own with these insurance companies because I was like, it cannot be that hard. Oh my God, Stephanie. My God, it is such a nightmare. I mean, I can't even tell you how crazy it's been trying to get paid. Like, it is a constant like fight.
Trying
I'm
to get
just like,
paid, really, through
yeah,
the insurance? Oh my gosh. I thought you meant to find
no.
good insurance. Oh my gosh.
So that's what the issue is, it's like
That's
private pay. So
terrible.
that's why I think a lot of people are going into private practice because you make good money if you do cash pay. But the insurance companies that's what I mean about like if the insurance companies I think treated us better, we would accept more insurance in private, but people don't want to do it because it's just it's such a fight.
Oh,
So A lot of therapists are going into tech companies, which I think the tech companies have done a good job of like making it easier for people to access care. But, there's a bunch of issues with those companies.
I bet it has. And like I said, okay, it's changed so much to where we've learned some things about addiction that have not been there before. Like that had a stigma around it too, correct?
Yeah.
The whole addiction thing, people didn't understand it. So they just put people with addictions in a box and said there's something wrong with them. They're crazy.
They don't want to change.
We found some more, some things medically that it's more hereditary, correct? It's not a learned thing. It's more of you're born with it kind of thing.
Yeah, well, it's really both, It's really both. I think that, but the genetic predisposition of it has definitely helped with destigmatizing it, because yeah, there is definitely like a genetic component to it, but environment also plays a role. But in terms of like to lessen the stigma, we definitely talk a lot about like the genetic factor, because I think previously we were definitely more so like, oh, it's a choice, right? Like that's where I think a lot of the stigma came from. People don't want to quit, so they just don't. But that's just not true, It's definitely a lot
Yeah.
deeper than that. And to speak to your point too around like the genetic factor is also important, but I think really we talk a lot now about just like how trauma impacts people and their choices, and how their brain develops and things like that. So I think like trauma also plays such a big role in addiction. Essentially, addiction is just like a maladaptive coping skill, you know what I mean? It's a person trying to get better but just not really necessarily having the tools and knowing how.
Or going about it the right way. But that's all they know. Do you think that the criminalization of addiction has done more harm than good? And I mean, shouldn't addicts be treated rather than punished?
I mean, 100%. Yeah. But the
Yeah.
hard thing about this too is like I used to work at San Quentin State Prison out here in California, and I remember thinking like talking to so many of the people that were incarcerated, and like for a lot of them like jail or prison saved their life, So it's not that jail or prison is super harmful. I mean, sometimes people need to be forced out of their environment to get better. Once they're in jail or prison, like to do nothing with that person, to not work with them at all around mental
Yeah.
health or all of that, that's so harmful. 100%.
Yeah. I feel like that's a complete missed opportunity as far as
100%.
you're right. I mean, maybe they do need a little bit of structure. Maybe they do need something to take them out of their environment. But I feel like when you're in prison or when you're in jail, you're just around more criminalized people that can teach you more criminal behavior. Like you learn more about being a better criminal in jail than anything else.
Totally. I don't really believe that anyone should just be incarcerated, especially just for drugs specifically. Yeah, it just depends on the person truly in
Yeah,
terms of like what they need. But yeah, throwing people into jail for it is obviously not the way to get things done.
right. It seems like it's so much pressure on the individual person to do it
100%.
for themselves instead of rather than getting the help that they should get from
Mm-hmm.
the system. Yeah.
Totally.
I'm wondering about how you feel about how politics plays a part. Have you noticed an impact on overall mental health due to the current events?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, especially with like the cutting funding and stuff. I mean, I see it from all the way from the provider level down, of like, of course, our clients are impacted, but so are our providers in that we are losing money
True.
in so many programs and budget cuts and all of that. So it's like, yes, people are definitely clients are impacted because high stress and like mental health will go, becomes more poor. But that's true. Also, like we have to take care of our providers better because therapists are also extremely stressed out, and now we're losing funding, and like that's not,
It doesn't help
it
anybody.
doesn't help anybody. So yes, to your question, and also just to expand on that, it also really impacts the field as a whole.
So how do systemic issues such as poverty and lack of healthcare and all of that contribute to addiction?
It's just, it all contributes. It just keeps people addicted. I think people don't feel like they have the tools or the support because they don't. You want to know something so interesting that I learned kind of recently? I
What's
was
that?
talking to someone that worked at San Quentin, and I was talking about getting involved in their reentry program because they've had this reentry program essentially with it just helps people once they get out of prison. It just helps them get set up with like case management. Here's how to get a cell phone. Here's how to like get your life collected and put back together post
Wow.
prison. This program has been running in that prison for probably like, I want to say 10 years, if not longer. And I didn't know, but apparently that program is 100% volunteer based and has never had, they have had grants at times, but no consistent funding over a 10-year period of time.
It's completely something that needs to be funded
Right?
federally. And instead of like building all these new prisons because oh my God, there's so many more criminals. Well, maybe if you put the money into reform,
Right.
When programs more like what you just said, you wouldn't have the need for more prisons.
Right. I did not know that. I did not know those were all volunteers.
That's what's sad, is
So
that it's
sad.
down to people that care,
Mm-hmm.
and the people that need to care do not. And that's
Mm-hmm.
what's really irking the crap out of me like day in and day out.
It's so crazy that they wouldn't even have any program set up to help these guys once they get out of
This is
prison.
exactly what we need. This is
Mm-hmm.
exactly what the prison systems need.
Yep.
It would solve a lot of the problems.
Yeah. Their recidivism rate is something like 75%.
That's insane.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I know it's there. I know that's a problem, but to hear it, and numerically, that's insane.
Yeah. And I just to work there, I felt heartbroken, all these guys that were going to be released soon. And I'm like, and they're going to come right back because where are they supposed to go?
Does mental health play a role in creating a more just society? Younger, like early education, do you think we need to focus on mental health a little more earlier on?
I don't know. I have such a hard time with this type of stuff. Like, yes. However, if people want to access therapy services, we don't have the capacity.
It always comes back to that.
You know what I mean? So yeah, I want to be absolutely talk mental health as
Right.
early as you can. But what if a kid
It's
decides
just not conducive
hey, I need to
to
go to
our.
therapy. Good luck. Right?
Yeah. Oh,
That's the part
wow.
of
Yeah.
this that I have. It's just, again, I think always talking about it is helpful, but the pressure I've seen that we're putting on the system at this point, because we're talking about it so much, it's really tough to see therapists struggle to the point that where therapists are struggling, right? You guys, they're really struggling.
Well, that's sad because we depend on therapists because we're struggling.
Yeah, I know. And we're gonna,
and I'm not putting anything on you. I'm not saying I'm not putting you down at all.
No, you're right.
I don't know if you're religious at all, and I'm not trying to bring religion into it. But what you were saying about letting things be what they are, that's like a faith-based thing. Like you have to have faith that things are going to be okay, that things are working out for a reason. How does that work as far as religion and faith and bringing that component into it?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I just value whatever my client brings to the table. So if they want to make it more of a faith-based thing, I'm down for that. I'm really open to whatever. Whatever speaks to people, I'm we can roll with that. Essentially, the thought is the same. The thought is the same no matter what you want to attach it to. So really just acceptance of things for what they are. So much mental health, I think, that we can just kind of work out within ourselves and with other resources, and not necessarily, I think we're moving away maybe from this traditional idea of therapy, and just kind of figuring out what the needs are. And then is there any other way we can kind of help you feeling better?
That totally lends to my point that I had in one of my episodes about how doctors, due to pharmaceutical companies' pressure, push medication on people when it could just be like a simple, they come in for this and you could just say, oh, well, how about you just change your diet, or how about you do this, or how about, something that could be home remedied, but they push medicine on them
instead.
Tell us how family and friends can support someone battling with addiction. What's the most effective way?
Love. Just love, I think just unconditional, just being supportive. And that's really it. I work with a lot of loved ones of people with addiction. And a lot of the work I do with them, I spoke to acceptance and commitment therapy earlier, is really just a lot of ACT stuff. It's just about just accepting them for who they are. And what's hard is that people that are the loved ones, they usually feel like there's something that they did wrong, or there's something that they should be doing now as this person is struggling with addiction. But the answer is that probably both those things are not helpful in this moment. Whether something happened within your relationship, whatever, maybe you did something wrong or not, which you probably didn't. Either way, you just kind of have to accept yourself and your loved one in that moment, and just show as much love as you can, and just be patient, because the change has to come within the person who's struggling.
There's a fine line between enabling and tough love. What's your advice on that?
It's a good question.
Thank you.
I think it's just case by case. I mean, this is essentially why I have a job, because I think that I can't answer that and just it's always this. I like to kind of work with my clients if they're, I have just, if their loved ones are struggling, I talk with them about where do we draw the line on the boundaries, and what is enabling versus just showing love. I think what I've learned, though, after working with addiction for so many years, is that less is more.
Okay.
So if you're doing any behaviors that maybe the person thinks is maybe enabling, less of that tends to just, elicit a stronger reaction. Because again, the stronger your boundaries are, the more the other person has to figure it out on their own. And that is the hope, is that once they have to figure these things out on their own, they will find their own change in time. But again, it takes a lot of patience and just acceptance of both parties involved, and a lot of love to really get through that. Yeah, loving someone with an addiction is extremely hard. It's extremely isolating, and it can be super challenging. So making sure that, you, if your loved one's struggling, making sure that you also are getting enough to make sure that you're okay too, just because to be around it at all is extremely hard.
I've learned a whole lot talking to you, Stephanie, and I appreciate your point of view and that you were here with me today.
Wait. I got one more question for you.
Do therapists need therapists?
Yeah, 100%. But like, we don't have health insurance.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I'm sorry.
And
Oh my gosh, it's so not funny, but just, oh my God.
I mean, it's kind of funny.
It's so,
It's just like
the irony, Stephanie.
Like, I have to pay my therapist
Oh my
cash. She's
God.
$185 an hour. Like, and I just,
Oh
and to
my
that
God.
point,
Go to a $20 an
it's
hour
just, and to
one.
that point too, it's like people think that therapists are making a killing because they charge $185, but it's like, yeah, but that's covers all their costs for their whole business. And remember that we have
Right.
no benefits, so it's like, that's like, it's not that much money at the end of the
Well,
day.
that's something I didn't know. I'm sure most people don't know that therapists don't have
I think a
benefits.
lot of people
So
think
don't you get benefits through the state, as far as like if you're a private practice therapist, and what are you, an LLC, not an LLC,
Yeah.
whatever you are, doesn't that provide any type
I
of
mean, I
insurance?
just have to pay out of pocket for my insurance.
Come on,
Yeah, and
girl.
it's like hundreds of dollars a month. So yeah, I was reading on Reddit the other day just to get upset, just for fun, and there's people being like, my therapist makes like $200 an hour, like she has so much money. And I commented back and I was like, no, that's like, you guys like look at these costs, like that's just like for you. But remembering that like we do so much work that's not paid, that's only our face-to-face time. And then other than that, all the work we do to like organize our business, set up the health record, all of that, like insurance, all of that comes out of that amount of money.
Yeah.
So I think people have the view of the world that therapists make a killing, and therapists have a view of the world like, no, we don't. And it's just kind of like this total disconnect of like, it's because we're not supported by the system.
So you're like a Instacart shopper kind of thing. Like you're
Kind
just,
of.
you're,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like you're with this big conglomerate company and you get no benefits, and oh my gosh.
So I've always wanted to like,
And they're taking all the money off top and paying you this minimal sum.
exactly.
Yeah,
And that's
oh
how
my gosh.
all of these agencies, if you look up any therapy job that is like that, it's how all of these agencies work. They just they hire a bunch of therapists, they get a bunch of insurance contracts, and then they pay you whatever they want. And it's not a lot. So, thanks for giving me a platform to talk about that. Because I also feel like that's just part of it, that I like that one side of it because they love it for clients. But it's, as a provider, I'm like, oh, I don't love that for us. So it's hard to get, it's hard to get everyone moving forward at the same pace.
Working. Like I said, thank you so much for being here.
No worries. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for giving me, just a platform to kind of share from the therapist side of things too, because I feel like it's just important and it's not talked about a lot. Yeah, thank you.
At all, basically, because we don't think about you guys. This is From Dirt We Grow. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much, Stephanie, for being here.
Talk soon.
And you are welcome back anytime, my love.
Thank you so much, Steph. Talk to you soon.